There is a place where biology forgets its purpose. It is a region of space where the fundamental blueprint of life is erased and rewritten in real time. This is SCP-065. To the outside world, it appears as nothing more than a government research facility. SCP was established specifically to encircle this anomaly, masking its existence under the guise of official state business. The perimeter is strictly guarded. Civilians are kept far away from the fence lines. Those who wander too close, those who attempt to breach the boundaries of the site, are not merely turned away. They are detained. They are questioned. And if the security teams deem it necessary, their memories are wiped clean with Class A amnestics. The world is told that this land is off limits. The truth is far more volatile. At the heart of the facility lies a spherical region of space, approximately 12 meters in radius. It sits silently on what used to be a family farm. This area is not empty, but it is forbidden. Surrounding the center is a designated perimeter 17 meters in radius, known as the Red Zone. The Red Zone is a place of absolute prohibition. No personnel are permitted to enter this space at any time, even for those with high-level clearance. Experimentation with SCP-065 is not a matter of simple curiosity. It requires the formal approval of at least 2 Level 3 senior research staff. The risks are not merely immediate. They are lingering. Because of the nature of the anomaly, any staff member at high risk of cancer is barred from assignment to site. Those who are stationed there must submit to a rigorous medical regime. Every single month, every person on site undergoes mandatory physical evaluations. They are screened for cancer. They watch their own bodies for the first sign of a mutation that should not exist. To understand why such precautions are necessary, one must understand what happens within the sphere of SCP-065. The anomaly does not simply kill, it transfigures. It reaches into the very marrow and membrane of any living organism that enters its influence and begins to dismantle it. The process is a chaotic regression. Specialized cells, the cells that make a heart beat, a lung breathe, or a brain think, suddenly forget what they are. They regress. They return to an undifferentiated stem state. In an instant, the complex architecture of a living being is reduced to a raw, primitive slurry of biological potential. Then, the chaos accelerates. These undifferentiated cells begin to separate and fuse spontaneously. There is no logic to this movement. Tissues merge where they should be distinct. Organs dissolve into masses of unformed flesh. In some cases, living tissue simply dies, succumbing to spontaneous necrosis. But the horror does not end with death. The anomaly can reanimate dead tissue, bringing it back in forms that defy every law of nature. While this is happening, the genetic code itself begins to warp. Rapid mutations tear through the DNA. The organism is rewritten while it is still alive. The speed of this dissolution depends on the complexity of the victim. The anomaly seems to respect a hierarchy of mass. Plants and insects are largely ignored. They may show few or no effects at all, as if their simple structures are too basic for SCP-065 to find interesting. Small animals fare slightly worse, exhibiting strange alterations only after several days of exposure. Larger animals do not have the luxury of time. Within hours, their bodies succumb to harmful mutations. For humans, the window of survival is agonizingly short. Any human subject who enters the red zone is fundamentally altered almost immediately. The process is rapid and inevitable. Within approximately 15 minutes of exposure, the transfiguration becomes fatal. 15 minutes is all it takes for a person to cease being a person and become something else entirely. But there is a mystery at the center of this sphere, a core that refuses to be seen. Every attempt to directly observe the center of SCP-065 has ended in failure. It is not a matter of physical barriers, but sensory collapse. The anomaly projects a form of extreme sensory confusion onto anyone who tries to look upon its heart. This distortion does not only affect the human eye or ear, it extends to recording equipment. Cameras cannot capture it. Microphones cannot hear it. Personnel who have attempted to peer into the center report highly distorted vision and hearing. The world bends and warps. The sounds of the environment become unrecognizable. This sensory trauma persists for several hours after leaving the area, leaving the observer plagued by severe dizziness and nausea. It is as if the mind is rejecting the very sight of what lies at the center. For a long time, the heart of SCP-065 remained a void, until the Foundation deployed a robotic rover. This machine was not designed to see or hear in the traditional sense. It used somatosensory navigation. It felt its way through the space, relying on touch and physical presence rather than visual or acoustic data. Because it did not observe the center in a way that triggered the sensory confusion, it was able to reach the middle of the sphere. The rover returned with several objects. When the researchers pieced these fragments back together, they discovered the remains of a stone figurine. It was a representation of Kokopelli, the Native American deity of fertility. The figure had been shattered into pieces. This discovery provided the missing link to the origin of the anomaly. Through pre-incident data obtained from the Global Occult Coalition, a tragic sequence of events came to light. Long before sight existed, this land belonged to a civilian family. They lived on a farm, struggling to make ends meet. At some point, they came into possession of the Kokopelli figurine. They did not view it as an anomaly or a weapon. They viewed it as a tool. They planted the artifact by their cornfield, using its influence to boost the yield of their crops. For a time, it worked. The farm flourished, but the growth was too successful. It was too perfect. The United States Department of Agriculture eventually conducted an investigation into the farm. They were looking at crops that were claimed to be organic, yet the genetic markers told a different story. The corn possessed markers consistent with genetically modified organisms, GMOs, despite there being no evidence of laboratory interference. This anomaly in the soil drew the attention of the Global Occult Coalition. The GOC does not tolerate such artifacts. They moved in to neutralize the threat. On a date now recorded in the archives, GOC operatives attempted an on-site destruction of the figurine. They succeeded in destroying the object, but they failed to destroy its power. The moment the artifact was shattered, it did not vanish. Instead, it detonated into a biological catastrophe. The resulting event created SCP-065. In the immediate aftermath of the destruction, the anomaly expanded violently. Its radius surged outward to 108 meters. Those caught in that initial expansion had no time to flee. 11 GOC operatives and 5 civilians were killed instantly as the sphere tore through them. It was only after the Foundation stepped in to contain the site that the effective radius of SCP-065 shrunk, eventually stabilizing at its current 12-meter size. Among the ruins of the farmhouse, a single document was recovered. A letter. It was addressed to a man named John. The author, identified only as G, wrote of the struggles they were facing at home. G spoke of being far away, working toward important discoveries, and unable to return immediately. In the letter, G mentioned finding a gift during their travels. G described the object, the stone figurine, by quoting the man who had sold it to them. The man had called the figurine a representation of that which is and that which might be. Joe's advice to John was simple: plant it by the cornfield, and hopefully, it will help make ends meet. It was a gesture of love and survival, a desperate attempt to save a family farm. But in doing so, G had introduced something into the earth that did not belong in our world. They had planted a seed of infinite, uncontrolled potential. Now, the figurine lies in fragments at the center of a dead zone. The family is gone. The farm is a fortress of concrete and steel. The researchers at site continue their monthly screenings. They check their blood. They scan their tissues. They live in constant fear of a mutation that could start from within. They know that the figurine was meant to represent that which might be. And as they look at the red zone, they realize that the most terrifying thing about SCP-065 is not what it has already done. It is the realization that biology is fragile, and there are things in this world that can make us become something we were never meant to be.